Welcome to the Leaderonomics show. Today we have an amazing person, a friend of mine and a dear faculty of Leaderonomics, an inspirational figure, Jamie Andrew. Jamie is an amazing person that inspires many. In spite of the fact that he's lost both his hands and legs, he still manages to do great defying impossible things. Jamie climbs mountains, he skis, and he's even done the Ironman triathlon. So join me now as I converse with him to find out what makes this man tick, what makes Jamie Andrew this inspirational figure that he is. Welcome to the Leaderonomics show. I'm with Jamie Andrew, who many years ago lost his hands and legs in an accident. Jamie is a faculty of Leaderonomics, and Jamie, welcome to our show. Great to have you here.
Thank you, Roshan. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about yourself. How did this accident happen, and tell us what happened?
Well, I'm a mountaineer. That's been my passion in life since I was 16 years old, I suppose. And even before that, I loved the outdoors. I'm from Scotland in the United Kingdom, and that's where my love for the mountains grew. And it was when I was 29 years old, in 1999, that myself and my very good friend and climbing partner went to climb a mountain in the French Alps called Les Droites. It's a very hard mountain, especially by the north face that we were climbing, a very difficult challenge indeed, and we were making it even more challenging by doing it in the winter time, so it was a big undertaking. But things looked pretty good. We had a good forecast. We were climbing really well together. We prepared.
And you were very experienced guys doing this all the time.
We were fit and very experienced, so it was all looking good for that. And it did go very well. The climb itself actually presented us with no problems, but the big issue arose on the afternoon of day 2 of the climb when a massive storm swept in off the Atlantic and engulfed the Alps. And we were caught out in this storm, unable to get down, more or less unable to move on the mountain. We desperately fought our way the last few hundred meters to the summit, and there we dug ourselves in on a tiny little icy ledge.
Okay. And you didn't ask for help? I mean, was there a way to reach out for help?
There wasn't. This was just before the age of universal mobile phones, so we didn't have a phone.
This is 99, right?
Yeah, 99. So phones were available, but we didn't have one. But the main thing, the point was that the rescue services knew where we were. They just couldn't get to us.
We'd left because of the conditions.
Yeah. So it wasn't so much about communication as just surviving. And survive we had to do through very severe conditions: snow, wind, temperatures of minus 30 degrees.
And how long were you on this ledge?
Well, in the end, we were stuck there for 5 days.
5 days?
Yeah.
Wow, okay.
Yeah. And tragically, during the final night, my friend Jamie died from hypothermia. He just couldn't take the cold anymore. And I was...
and you knew he had
I was still conscious of that stage, yeah. So I was becoming hypothermic myself, but I knew this was the end for Jamie, and I thought it was going to be the end for me too. And by now my hands and my feet were starting to freeze up, so I couldn't even use them, and it all looked pretty desperate. But somehow I made it through to the next morning, to the dawn.
And you were still conscious?
I was still conscious, still aware, unable to move, but I was able to hear as I heard that thud of the helicopter as it approached. And so it was by no means an easy rescue. In fact, it was one of the most difficult and dangerous and spectacular rescues in the history of the Alps. They couldn't, because of the turbulence, because of the wind, they couldn't hover anywhere near us to get to us. They had to drop a man onto the mountain ridge and pull back to safety, leaving this man to reach us by abseil
Wow.
They then had to swing a hook on the end of the line, on the end of a 90-meter line from the bottom of the helicopter. They swung this hook into us. The rescuer caught it in his hand, just clipped it onto my harness so that just whoosh, I was just yanked off the mountain. So it really was.
So you were 90 meters on a...
90 meters above a 1,000-meter drop,
Wow.
spinning in space.
And were you conscious at this time?
It was around about then that I finally did pass out, but I was conscious right up until the rescue, yeah. And I remember at the time thinking, you know, I've made it, you know, I'm alive, I'm going to live. But I knew also that this wasn't the end that we'd been hoping for. This wasn't a happy ending, that I was going to be returning to a very, very different world.
So you sort of knew that there was going to be issues down the road?
Yeah, well, my hands and feet were so frozen solid by this stage. So, you know, you don't get away with that kind of frostbite.
And what happened? I mean, I'm assuming they rushed you to a hospital. And
I was rushed to the hospital in Chamonix, where I was in great hands. They took really good care of me. They had to thaw me out, and then it was a case of managing the damage that had been done to my hands and feet, and trying to allow the body to regenerate and trying to prevent infections from taking control. But the bottom line was there was so much dead material in my hands and feet that it was just no amount of antibiotics could control the infections, and I started to get very, very ill with septicemia and septic shock. So it was at that point I was unconscious again. In fact, I was in a medically induced coma now. And the doctors and surgeons had to take the very difficult decision to amputate.
And you knew that they were going to do this, or?
I didn't know.
You didn't, okay.
No, I was unconscious by this stage. I knew it was a possibility, but the first I knew about it, I woke up 2 or 3 days later, lost all sense of time or place, woke up and I looked down my hospital bed, and where my hands and feet had previously been were now just stumps, gone.
And what was your first reaction when you looked at yourself and said?
The first reaction is just shock and numbness and disbelief. You know, it's denial, isn't it? It's not being, the human mind just isn't capable of taking in something of that enormity in one go. So for days or weeks or months even, I was refusing to believe it was even true, and desperately hoping that I would wake up to find it all a crazy dream. But it was real, and I just had to somehow find a way of coming to terms with this.
And how did you come to terms with it? I mean, was there help that was given, or you had to come through your own sense of realization?
I guess there were several key factors involved. Firstly, the help you mentioned. I was really lucky. I was surrounded by help. There was so many people that were at my side, be they professional people, doctors and surgeons and nurses and other medical staff, or my friends and my family, my own girlfriend Anna, who were all on my bedside, and they were all just as confused as I was, and none of them knew how to help me, but just by being there and being able to talk through, that was the greatest medicine that I could have. Simply that ability to share my experience and my loss with somebody else. That was key. The other person that was with me throughout all this was Jamie Fisher.
This is your friend that passed away.
Who had died on the mountain. His memory was so strong in me. His spirit, if you like, I felt gave me a huge amount of strength to carry on. And that I knew that I was the lucky one here. I was the one that had survived. I had a responsibility to make the most of this second chance I had been given. And Jamie, if he was in my place, I was going to say in my shoes, but I wasn't exactly wearing shoes at that point. If he was in my place, he would be doing exactly the same thing. He'd be getting on with it. He'd be making the most of the life that he'd been given. So I did feel that responsibility.
Right, Jamie, we'll talk a little bit about your second life and the second phase of what happened right in a bit. But we're going to take a quick break. So stay with us. We'll be back in the Leaderonomics Show.
Top 10 reasons why talents leave companies. Praise.
Cut! This week, top 10 ways to stand out at work.
What a difficult customer.
It's difficult when you just
But
join
then
a
again,
new company.
customers are always right.
Angry and frustrated at your boss can be a bad idea.
Welcome back to the Leaderonomics Show. I'm with Jamie Andrew. Jamie, we were talking about the period right after your accident when you were in the hospital and came to the realization that this was going to be a very different period in your life. Tell us a bit more. How did you cope with the new challenges? And maybe you can tell us a bit with some of the challenges that you faced.
Sure.
And you mentioned your best friend's memory gave you a vision to, or gave you the power, the impetus to keep carrying on. If there were other sort of enablers that helped you to move to the next phase in life.
Sure, certainly the memory of Jamie Fisher was a very powerful motivator, and also the strength given to me by the people around me who were supporting. And it was, for me, it was a little bit difficult to let go of myself and allow myself to rely on other people. Once I did that, I found it was a great release to be able to actually depend on people. You know, admit that I wasn't entirely self-sufficient and needless of the help of others. So that was a big help. I also realized that I had a very obvious choice here. You know, I could go one of two ways. I could give up, lie in hospital bed, feel sorry for myself and fade away. Or I could make something of this. And in order to do that, I would have to give it 100%. So that's what I really knew I had to do.
And how do you come to the choice? Because I mean, many people will play the victim and will just kind of play the fade away game. Was there something that helped you to say, look, I'm going to make that jump?
I felt a lot of responsibility to the people around me who'd worked so hard to save me, and you know, the rescuers and the doctors and the surgeons and the nurses, and of course my friends and family and all those people around me. I felt responsibility to them, but I think really it had to be for me really that I was doing this. It had to be for my own sake, and I knew that this was a unique, somehow deep within me, I knew this was a unique opportunity that I had. And once I started to think along those lines, not of it being a terrible disaster or something awful and negative, but seeing that there could actually be a positive in all this. Once I started thinking in that direction, my mind started to seeking out those positives. How can I make something good out of all this? And it was very hard and slow to do that at first.
Okay, so and what were some of these positives?
Well, they were a long time in coming, but you know, here I am speaking to you now, 15 years on, and what an amazing opportunity to be in Malaysia and on this show. Just
Sharing
it would never have happened to me before this accident, and so many things have happened. You know, I've had the chance to do an awful lot of work for charities and to raise money for kids in Angola and meet the Queen of the UK and things like that.
But those things happened because you decided to take things in your hand. I mean, can tell us a bit about your first step? I mean, I guess it was when you climbed that first hill or mountain or whatever you call it in the UK.
Roshan, the very first steps were nothing like that. They were in hospital. They were doing such simple things as just picking up a cup, you know. And that to me was...
Or even taking your first few steps, I guess.
That was remarkable, just to be upright again after, it was about 3 months before I was walking. And
you had the prosthetic...
Yeah, so I got my first pair of prosthetic legs. Yep. Having thought that I would never walk again, and here I was on this amazing piece of high-tech kit, which was just not only remarkable for me, you know, to get back into, but was also great fun, you know. It was like having a new toy to play with, getting these legs. So, you know, making something good out of it, making it fun.
Okay.
That was a big help.
And those must have been painful little steps that you
It was
took.
painful to begin with, but it was rewarding pain, because it's like, a toddler, when you see a young child learning to walk for the first time, they walk a few steps, they fall over, they bang their head on the side of the table. It's all
stuff that you had to do.
No pain, no gain, isn't it? So
absolutely.
You persevere, and eventually the pain isn't so bad anymore.
And how did you end up getting back to mountaineering?
I never let that dream die in me. I always felt somehow that it could be possible that I would get back into the mountains,
even with no hands and legs. I mean,
especially with no hands and legs, that makes it all the more important to be able to do it. So, mountaineering with hands and feet has been done by thousands of people. It's to do it without hands and feet, to me, was suddenly this unique goal that I had in my sights. So I knew that I wanted to do it. And the first few steps I took in the hills, just...
Tell us that story, because I think that's an interesting little glimpse.
Well, the first hill that I climbed was just my local hill in my backyard in Edinburgh. It's in one of the parks in the city, and it's called Blackford Hill, and it's no more than about 200 metres from the car park to the summit, so It's no great mountain. But standing on the summit of that little hill with this wonderful view all around the city, I just felt on top of the world. And
then that led you to a slightly taller hill?
Yeah, then I thought, right, take it one step at a time then. Take it one step at a time. And literally that's what I did. I took it one step at a time. And I've used that ever since. If I've got some crazy dream in mind, well, maybe it is a crazy dream, but I'm not going to write that off. I'm going to take one step at a time towards that goal and see where I get to.
And so that has led you to Kilimanjaro, and where else?
All sorts of things. So yeah, lots of mountaineering challenges like Kilimanjaro and climbing Mont Blanc.
And you did Kilimanjaro with the others who were disabled, right?
That was an all-disabled team, yeah. So that was very interesting. Learning.
So all five of you?
All four of us, different disabilities, different weaknesses.
How did you manage to?
Well, the thing is, that
must have been pretty hard, right? I mean,
it was tough. It was tough.
Kind of use your strengths and be supportive to each other. And
exactly, that's what we discovered. Basically, was that although we all had our own weaknesses, we all had our own strengths, and it was quite simply a case of working our way around the weaknesses and working with the strengths, and that was all just simple stuff, just helping each other out. So whereas I can't do up a zip on my jacket, David, who's got hands but not much feeling below his knees, well, his hands can do my jacket zips. And it was simple things like that. It meant we were able to work together as a team. And I think high-performing teams are always ones in which all the members of the team are able to identify each other's weaknesses and strengths and not see them as
derailers.
Derailers, but actually just to see the positive in having individual weaknesses and strengths.
That's great. So every time you kind of have a new goal and keep yourself focused to achieving that goal, it seems to be the way you've gone about.
What I try and do is have a dream goal, but always try and have a series of goals beneath that. So some mid-term goals.
So it's easy to get that,
and some
then
short goals. Yeah, some little goals you can achieve every day. Give yourself that little reward every day or every other day. Otherwise, you lose heart and you can easily give up on the target.
We're going to talk a little bit about your Ironman triathlon in a bit, but we're going to take another quick break now. I'm here with Jamie Andrews here on the Leaderonomics show. We'll be back shortly. Welcome back to the Leaderonomics show. I'm with Jamie Andrew. Jamie, we were talking about you and challenges, and for some reason I noticed that you had done an Ironman triathlon. Actually, maybe you mentioned that to me a couple of years ago when we met. Why Ironman triathlon? Was that one of your challenges that you had?
I think that was a complete brainwave that I had. But yeah, I'd heard about the Ironman, and it seemed like an amazing challenge. But as with so many of these things, I thought it would just be way out of my league. But I kept it there as, I put a pin in it and thought maybe one day, and then just started working my way towards it. And to my surprise, within a couple of years, I felt I was in a position where this was actually going to be possible. So I thought, right, go for it.
So you swam, you cycled, and you...
Yeah, swim 3.8 kilometers, cycle 180 kilometers, and then it's a full marathon, 42.2.
Goodness, and you did it with no hands and legs. Amazing.
Yeah. Well, once, but never again, I tell you.
So I think, at least I hear from you that it's kind of important for every one of us to have clear goals and little mini goals to
I think it's really
keep putting
helpful. I think it's a really, really constructive way of organizing your life. It doesn't need to be all that formal, but at least in your own mind, I think if you've got clear goals, it really makes a big difference to whether you actually perform or don't perform.
Fantastic. Hey, if you were to give advice to a young person who's just graduated from university and is starting out in life, right? What nuggets of wisdom would you impart to that person?
I think it's that whatever it is that you want to do in life, whatever your own hopes or goals or ambitions are, or dreams, that you really can achieve those things. But in order to do that, you have to make the most of what you have. You have to make the most of what everybody around you has. Use the skills of other people. And maybe sometimes do things a little bit differently. Don't be afraid to do things differently from the way they've done before. But most of all, just to believe in yourself. And you really can achieve incredible things.
Interesting. If you were to address a group of CEOs or business leaders, and you could impart some piece of advice, right? What would you say to them?
One thing that I've learned along this road that I've been on is that the challenges we face in life are invariably 95% mental, and only 5% other factors. Like 5% physical. Not having hands and feet is meaningless to me compared to the power of a positive mental attitude. Yeah. So if you can harness that 90,
harness that from your employees.
Exactly, and to believe that in yourself, but also in your employees, that the challenges are up here in the mind, and that they can be overcome.
Fantastic. All right, every guest has to go through our Thinkonomics. So
Great.
We're going to make sure that you go through our grueling Thinkonomics tests. So here's a dice. You've got 2 dice.
Okay.
Choose a color and let's get cracking.
I just roll 1, do I?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, we get to see Jamie roll a dice.
Yeah, everything's possible.
Giving. Oh, what a perfect piece, Mr. Jamie.
What's it going to be?
Do you think, here's a question, 30 seconds to answer it, right? Okay. Do you think a poor person is entitled to donate less?
I think everyone can donate, but it doesn't have to be money. So donating means giving, and giving your time, giving your energy, giving your love, giving your expertise.
Absolutely.
It doesn't really matter.
Right. So every one of us can give regardless of our status.
So when you look at it that way, people aren't poor if they have something to give.
Absolutely. You want to do another one?
Yeah, go for
Which
it.
one? Blue one.
We'll do blue this time.
Yep. Giving again.
Giving again.
Mr. Giving.
Yeah.
Do we give when we listen well to others?
I think so. When I was in hospital bed, the most help that I could get from the people around me was when they were able to come to my bedside and just listen to what I was going through. Just give me the space to be able to talk freely.
And that was very therapeutic.
That was very therapeutic, and I couldn't have done it without that kind of help. So listening,
Listening helps, huh? Okay, let's do one more.
Okay.
Last one, and then we're done.
I'll give it a big throw this time.
Yeah. Empowering. All right, let's see what empowering has. Would you accept advice from a younger person? Why?
I accept advice from my kids all the time. I've got 3 kids, a 10-year-old and 2 8-year-olds, twins, and I learn from them every day. They've been the biggest challenge I've faced in my life, and they teach me every day. And
Kids are interestingly a big challenge for all of us. Huh?
yes,
So is it harder to have no hands or legs, or harder to take care of kids?
it makes it more fun, I think. They don't not know the difference. They just grow up knowing me as dad. So,
But do they feel ashamed sometimes, or is there?
so far, no. I wouldn't be surprised when they're teenagers. Maybe they will. But at the moment, I'm the coolest dad at the school playground gates.
Yep.
You know, I'm the one that all the other kids rush to see what's going on. So, so my kids really still appreciate that.
I must ask you, because one of the hardest things I did was to change diapers when I was the early dad. But how did you do that?
Oh, I don't want to know about changing diapers with my teeth. But
With your teeth?
Oh. Well, it could be tricky. But yeah,
All right, we'll not harass you with further questions. Well, Jamie, thank you so much for being on our show. Give you a nice little shake this time.
Thank you, Roshan.
Thank you for being on our show, and we appreciate you coming down to Malaysia, and wish you all the best.
I really appreciate it.
In your future endeavors. And Jamie's written a book. What's your book?
Life and Limb.
Life and
Yep,
Limb. So
yep.
grab a copy of Life and Limb and support Jamie and his causes. Jamie, thanks again for being on the Leaderonomics show.
Thank you very much.